that we've been using, just to give you your cues here.
Sure. So I'll get started. You're recording already. So perfect. All right. So welcome everyone. For those of you I've not met, my name is Erica Watson, and I work with the Maine Development Foundation as the Senior Program Director for Education and Workforce Projects. And one of the programs that I help support is For Maine, which is the Forest Opportunity Roadmap. And so we currently have a grant through the Maine Department of Labor, transforming Maine's future forest workforce, creating seamless pathways. And so one of the projects in that grant is to be able to provide some professional development opportunities regarding the recruitment and retention of grant targeted populations, which we'll go over in just a moment. And we know that this work is important for a variety of reasons, including the labor shortage here in the state, the aging of this particular industry, and just cultural changes that we're experiencing across the state as well. And so I think most of you are probably familiar with some of For Maine's workforce strategies. So I won't go over these in great detail. However, this grant does help support outreach and awareness opportunities in the sector to a variety of different populations, such as women, immigrants, and often other folks who are often underrepresented within the sector. And with that, I will turn it over to Krista.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. If everyone could just throw your name and the organization that you represent in the chat today, that would be great. We'll be using the chat just to engage a little bit as we move through the content today. But it's nice to see all of you. So our goal for today is we'll chat a little bit about just what employee retention is. And I'll talk about some strategies for retaining diverse employees. And then have our guest speakers talk about how they've taken some of those strategies and applied them in the real world, what's worked, what hasn't, what maybe they would think about doing differently. And we have some great speakers here today, so I'm really excited. The folks from Agribility are going to be able to join us a little bit later in the meeting this morning. But I'm really excited to have you all here. And as always, the presentation is being recorded, so this will live on. We'll put this up on For Maine's YouTube channel, which you can see here. So you can have access to all 3 sessions and look back at any of the information as you need to. So the grant targeted populations that Erica mentioned are listed here. And they include unemployed or underemployed adults, in-school youth age 16 to 24, out-of-school youth age 16 to 24, people without a college degree, women, people of color, individuals involved in the justice system, and veterans are specifically those populations that we're trying to focus on with this work. And the goal is to both engage more prospective workers, bring them in to the industry, and then also retain them once we have them working at businesses. So recruitment and retention. So another quick question for you. I was curious to see, what was the reason you left your last job? You don't have to get into details here, but was it money, or was it better benefits, or was it just a better work-life balance? What were the reasons that you moved from your last position into the position that you have now? And throw that in the chat. And I'll tell you mine while you're doing that. So I graduated grad school in 2002. And that is when the housing crisis was starting to, or the housing bubble, the recession was starting to really take hold. And no, that was 2006. Sorry, wrong year. Six, seven, eight, nine. So it was 2009. And so I started work at a planning firm and who had a lot of work in housing. And I was laid off after about 2 years of the economy tanking. And then I convinced Comoin Associates to hire me. Somehow they were hiring in the middle of the recession, and I've been here for since then. Um, so let's see. Work-life balance, spouse took a job change. People and the pandemic. The pandemic, I think, definitely disrupted a lot of uh, things for a lot of people, and people made a lot of moves. The Great Resignation, right? That began in 2021, where 47.8 million people quit their jobs, and then 50 million quit their jobs in 2022. And in 2023, last year, it went back down to about 34 million. But most of those people aren't just leaving the workforce. A lot of them did, but most took other jobs. They shifted, they made a life change, they made a move that they maybe had been putting off when the pandemic was at its peak. And kind of everybody just the economy literally froze, right? So people had time to think and kind of plan their future and think about what they really wanted. So we had this great shift. Um, and a lot of people are happier now than they were before. But all of this disruption and all of this change has really created a change in the relationship between the employee and the employer. We're in a phase of intense competition. In past sessions, here we've talked a lot about the demographics and the shifts that have happened. Um, so now we have to do everything we can do as employers to retain our talent. And obviously, that's what we're here to talk about today. For most businesses, it's much easier and much cheaper to retain the employees they have than to try to hire them. And especially when we're talking about diverse workers, workers who are not traditionally represented in the sector, that means maybe doing things a little bit different, thinking differently on how to make those workers feel fulfilled and appreciated, and feel like they're a valued part of the organization. I found one stat, I think it was from McKinsey, that said replacing an employee that leaves typically costs about 6 to 9 months of that employee's salary for the organization to go find someone new to hire them and train them up. That's a lot of money. So that's kind of the baseline of why we're here today. So retention is simply an organization's ability to retain quality employees. Um, it's good to track retention rates, which just is a percentage of how many, what percentage of your workforce were you able to retain over a given period of time. And I was curious if anyone actually tracks their retention rate at their company. Does anybody do that? I think Croy does. Monique, do you want to talk about that really quickly while we're on it? Just how you do that and what that looks like?
Well, actually, we'll show a slide
Oh, perfect.
during our presentation that shows our retention rate over time. But yes, we do track it, and we can show how it's decreased over time and what we think has led to that. Yep.
Excellent. Can't wait
Yep.
to see that. Anybody else? Well, I know we do at Camoin, and it goes up and down. We're a team of 20 people, and it can shift pretty dramatically. We've also learned that when people are about to make a move, it typically happens in the fall for some reason. That's typically when people let us know that, hey, they might be taking a new job. I'm not quite sure why. So let's get into some of the strategies behind thinking about ways to retain diverse employees. And a lot of this can be applied very generally, and then the best we can, we'll dive into um, or just talk about how some of these strategies might affect some of the different populations differently. But number one, absolute baseline is you need to be competitive with your compensation and your benefits as an employer. And that means researching the market regularly. Things change. Things have changed a lot in the economy recently, with inflation and the cost of living going up in many places. So you just want to make sure that what you're offering is competitive. And then also don't contribute to the gender pay gap. is really, really important. And I threw some statistics here. And I am going to dwell on this for a minute, but women earn 84 cents for every dollar earned by men in the United States. And that's, for the US as a whole, all women and all men. But then if you start diving down into the details, rural women earn even less. It's only 76 cents. Rural Black or Hispanic women earn only 56 cents per every dollar. Um, and in Maine, you're a little bit above average in terms of the gender pay gap. It's which means you rank lower, which is a good thing. The gender pay gap is only just under $10,000. So you're rank 35. Vermont's number one. The gender pay gap in Vermont is about around 4,000. So still room for improvement here. So we're talking in dollars and cents, but all of that money adds up over the lifetime of an employee's career. So a 20-year-old woman entering the profession or starting a full-time job today can expect to earn $407,760 less than a man compared, same career path and same position. So think about that. That's completely different life and experience. Just simply because of being a woman on average in the United States. So Equal Pay Day was March 12th. We just had it. So again, let's really think about what our wages are and our rates are, and make sure that any bias is not getting put into that conversation when you're making those negotiations with people. The second part of being competitive and compensation benefits is to make sure your employees know what their benefits are, and how their insurance works, and what their wages are, and communicate that both verbally and in writing. Each year, I would recommend issuing an email or a document of some sort that lays out all of the benefits that you as an employer are offering your employees. Make sure they know exactly how many vacation days they get, their healthcare benefits, any cool benefits that they might get related to healthcare. Like, do they need a or can they like use the money towards gym memberships and things like that, and retirement contributions. So all of those things, lay it out and communicate that over and over again, because people forget, especially people who have been with you for a while. They kind of forget what some of those things are. So number 2 on the retention list is to work really hard to set up your new employees for success. And this is really about the psychology of making people feel welcome when they step in the door, that they know what to expect, that they're not like the kid trying to find a place to sit during lunch type of situation, right? So the first step here is to have a really engaging onboarding process, reduce all of the unknowns, and initiate relationships with the team. So make sure, that they have a mentor that or someone that can show them around. Before they even arrive the first day, communicate, communicate, communicate. Make sure that they know what to wear and know what they'll need and know where to go. What are their expected working hours? Things like that. Just over communicate so they feel really comfortable on that first day. And then have a really strong welcome and orientation process that you repeat with each new hire, where you have them meet with key decision makers. In our firm, we have each new person have a chat with our CEO, who talks about the company's values, and the history and the principles, so they can start to understand the culture and feel really welcomed, and know that they can talk to anyone in the company at any time. And then also just be really clear with articulating roles and responsibilities. Who do they report to? What's the organizational structure? Again, just providing clarity and as much information as you can, so people just feel very comfortable. I mentioned pairing employees with a mentor, and make sure that mentor relationship kind of continues throughout the duration of at least the first year. And, so they can always have someone to go to. Make sure the mentor's checking in at first, maybe every week, and then once a month, and just giving that time to those new employees. Feedback is hugely important, especially with younger populations. They are used to that from being in school, and so just making sure that they know where they're at, how they're doing, because otherwise sometimes people don't know if they're doing a good job or not doing a good job. Maybe they have one run in where someone's a little huffy with them and they feel like, oh, I'm a failure. And that's so not true, but that's what resonates. So continue to check in with people, make sure that they know where they need to improve or what you expect of them, and show appreciation. Whether it's, again, making a big to-do out of something because someone did something great, or just, making sure that managers are just acknowledging people's good work. And onboarding's, the idea here is it's not just kind of one day or one week, it's ongoing. It's really that first year of an employee's time at your business. So really make sure that you're spending the time to kind of make that a standard process for you. The next one, and this is hard, but really, really important, especially for younger people and people who are caregivers, is to find flexibility wherever you can, with whether that's, shift schedules. Can you know, do something different in the summer to accommodate school vacations and parents who have kids that are kind of doing different camps or different things or a different daycare situation. So it's, shift schedules are really, really helpful if you can make adjustments to best meet the needs of your employees, and what you need as a company. Sometimes your own schedules will shift and change based on market trends and things like that. Using a software to help with that can be really helpful. So you're not trying to, figure it out on a piece of paper. And then constantly monitor the success, what's working, what's not, and adapt to that. Can you have people work more hours and then have a 4-day work week, things like that. Employees really, even if it's just a test, they kind of appreciate the ability to try something different and get a little more time off, or even just more time in the mornings or the evenings, depending on what their needs are. So finding, can you reduce work days? Can you find efficiencies, especially when it's nice out in the summer or around holidays? A new thing that happens in some places once in a while, it's not super common, but job sharing. So it's when two people actually take the same position and they share the responsibilities. Like I said, not super common, but it has worked in some cases. And so more in managerial type positions. One thing that's really helpful for a lot of companies is part-time and contract employees. Do you have a pool of people that are on call that can help when, a parent has a sick kid or all of a sudden something breaks down? Can you pull them in quickly? They already know you and your systems and kind of can step in. Maybe it's someone who's retired but is willing to come back for a little bit. So kind of building a pool of part-time people that you can pull in is helpful. Remote work, I know that doesn't work for everybody, but if there are opportunities to do that once in a while, that really is kind of a nice perk for people. If you can, maybe there's a training that you need people to watch once a year or something like that. Can they do that for an hour at home before they come in, or things like that? And then finally, around flexibility, paid parental leave for all parents is, absolutely critical. Anytime a family welcomes, a new child, whether it's their biological child or they bring in a child through adoption or, to foster, making sure that they have the time to bond with that child is really important. And it shows your values as a company, investing, in families and prioritizing that. So culture also ranks really, really high when it comes to especially diverse populations, and wanting to feel connected and part of the community. So communication is a theme throughout all of this, but the more you can communicate, give feedback, ask for feedback, and then act on that feedback is really, really important. Work with your employees to help devise solutions to challenges, and kind of get ahead of issues so you're not surprised later when someone leaves or there's a big blow up and you don't really understand why. So being really connected, and having every level of management connected into what's happening on the ground is really, really important. Build that camaraderie and sense of belonging. Can you build some fun into the work day or the work week? Are there things that you can do something where people can then have a shared experience, and then they have a shared story. And is it, maybe it's a happy hour, or maybe it's you all take an afternoon off and do some volunteering, and anything that where you can kind of build that connectiveness and stories is really, really valuable to people, because they get to know people beyond just their roles at the company. Involving employees in decision making, again, asking for feedback, acting on that feedback, creating that culture of communication. um, Really focusing on educating all employees across the company about your inclusion and diversity goals. So when you do hire someone who doesn't fit the mold, explain the value and the strengths of why you are focusing on diversity and diversifying the workforce, and why that's so important. And include strategies and tools for your employees so they can be more inclusive in the day-to-day communication with their coworkers. And then this is really, really important, and I probably could have listed this first, but know when to say goodbye. Know when you need to just get rid of someone who is toxic to the work culture at your workplace. They might be amazing. They might be the smartest person you have on the team, or they might be someone who just, works super hard. But if they are a miserable human who everyone else does not like to be around, they will cause people to leave. And that can be a problem. So, try hard to not keep people like that around, because you'll lose other talent. That's a tough one. um, Career advancement is particularly important for young people, and also women often um, are less aggressive, we'll say, tend to be less aggressive about advocating for themselves and advocating for trying to level up constantly in their career. But the more you can do to illustrate internal career pathways, and let people know where there are opportunities so they can see that and see themselves in that, is really important. And at Comoine, we actually did some work with Erica to put together some information around some of the top jobs in the industry. So this is for millwrights, a job description, and it talks about what the skills are needed, work activities, what you do at the work, what you do in the position. It has information about like the outlook of that position, and just a lot of detail to help illustrate what this job is about, what you need to be in the job. It has some market information. The reason I'm showing you this is because you could take this data, which is kind of very general, and customize it for your own company, for the positions in your own company, and then have that available for people who are interested in advancing or taking on a managerial position. And you can show them the career pathways and the progression of what are the basic skills that you need, where do you need to have some training, and let's put together a plan for you to be able to do that. But I think if you don't talk to people about what those opportunities are in the company, where you're headed as a company, where you might need positions in the future, people just don't know, and they have a harder time seeing themselves in those roles. So the more you can do to take information that's like this and make it simple and easy and share that with your team, that will help spark ideas where they might want to take their own careers at your company.
Krista, can I add a couple points on the
Absolutely.
career advancement that I just think is interesting to call out? We do work across the country, across different size communities, across many industries. And I think a couple things that we've seen in common across all these sectors is the need for greater transparency into skills building, and the combination of education and experience needed. And then just highlighting the opportunities that might already be there within a company, but it's not reaching the rest of the world. And I just wanted to call those two things out because I think what's so great about this effort with Formain is the cross-sector collaboration of it all. And without that transparency into career progression, it can be really tough for all these different players in the workforce ecosystem to be able to help job seekers. So we hope that this is one resource. We have, I believe, 7 of these profiles and career pathways for forest product sector jobs. But I hope this is one starting point that can help partners in Maine better make those connections between what workers need, what employers are hiring, and then what education and training providers are providing for the different programs that can support these occupations. So just wanted to shed a light on that.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. That's really helpful. Any questions on that? We'll take a pause here before we keep moving forward. All right. So some other elements that relate to this is thinking about, can you build, are there digital skills that you can help people build that would both support them and the company? Is that around things like robotics and drones and remote sensing are all kind of digital skills that might help make something, a process at your organization more efficient, but then also help kind of expand your employees' knowledge base and skill set and, keep them interested and to keep progressing. I also really like the idea of creating opportunities for staff to take on special projects. So maybe it's not something that's right within their day-to-day, but one thing that I know that we sometimes will have staff do is help with recruiting or help with marketing the company through social media. We encourage our staff to be really active on LinkedIn and produce content. Is there a chance for them to test out a new tool or, just do something that's supporting the company in a different way? I know from my own experience when I was new at Camoin, I had the chance to start marketing the company through our email newsletter. That became my task. And when you start having to help think about talking about the company to consumers, it helps you connect better with that company and feel more aligned because you're having to verbalize what that means. And young people have those social media skills. They're great at it. And so, if you could give them an assignment and say, hey, once a month, can you put together a post that then we'll share on our social media? And who doesn't want to be part of this crew right here? They're having a great time, they're laughing. Obviously you don't want people on social media 24/7 a day, but giving them the space to be a little creative and do something different that also supports the company can be rewarding for everybody. And then after they've been doing it for a while, I would suggest having them look at that data and analyze the data with them to say, okay, what's working, what's not working, and just see how different posts are performing, those types of discussions. Again, just doing something different that's outside of their day-to-day to keep people interested and engaged with the overall company's mission and values. Work-life balance. We talked about flexibility already, but some other things to think about are, adequate time off. Again, know what the market's offering and see if you can beat it. Being really creative with benefits. Is there something unique about your community that maybe a community pool or something that you can connect into and team up with? Something that I'm seeing a lot of small companies doing now is providing financial management training and support to their employees. So they understand retirement planning and things like that. And then any access to any online platforms or learning that you can offer is another really attractive benefit that not every company offers. Employee assistance programs around mental health, helping them get through any personal issues that come up or just generally manage stress are really important. Promoting wellness, throughout the company through, physical activity. I know different companies do things like, step challenges and things like that. I know specific to the forest industry, people we'll hear about this a little bit from AgriBility when they're on later. But, people sit maybe on a machine or in a truck for hours and hours and hours. And so what can we do as employers to, promote a little bit more movement and activity? Childcare is huge. The more you can do to help employees have access to reliable childcare, and then also have a backup plan, because we know as parents, those kids get an ear infection and they spike a fever, and then you've got to bring them to the doctor, and it's a whole thing, right? And you lose a day or two of work dealing with that. So can you help build a village around people to address some of those issues? And then make sure your leadership is following all of the above and, taking time off and promoting work-life balance and mental health and all of the things, because if they're not doing it, the employees are going to see that and feel like they can't take advantage of those benefits or take time off. So making sure that leadership and management are kind of walking the walk. Employee surveys are really, really valuable. I know at our firm we try to do them once a year, and they help us kind of just take the temperature of where employees are at. And then also exit interviews, having a standardized exit interview for when someone does leave, so you can understand exactly why they're leaving, what was part of that decision making, is really, really important. So, asking them about their experience, what they value, what they wish, what maybe would have kept them. Um, sometimes someone leaves, and it's rare that it's just financial. And we've had a couple instances where we came back and said, if we met what this other employer is offering, would you change your mind? So being very direct and asking people that question, if you really do have the intention of possibly fighting for them, if there's a fight to be had, just making sure that you know exactly why they're leaving, so you can make adjustments if it makes sense. And sometimes you don't understand their decision making, and that's okay too. Humans are humans, and they're unpredictable. So that's kind of the end of the content for today. So now I wanted to shift over to our guest speakers. And we're going to start with Monique and Stefan from St. Croix Tissue, who are here to kind of talk about some of these high-level topics that I've presented and talk about what their experience. So Monique and Stefan, I'll pass it over to you.
Okay. Can you give me the ability to share my screen? Because I'll share a presentation that we've got.
Yes.
I think I can now that you're not sharing, actually.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yep. Can you see that okay?
Yes. It's not the version. There we go. No, we're
Is that
seeing.
better? Now you're seeing the presentation mode?
Yes. But it's not the full screen. It's like the speaker's notes.
How do I make that?
You can get out of that if you see the ellipses, bottom center. If you click on that, usually there's a hide presentation.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. Is that better?
Now try doing the full screen. Or
Work?
Go to view up top. Yeah, if that doesn't work, you can try going to view.
Maybe, hold on, let me stop sharing for a moment. And maybe if I make it presenter mode like first and then share that screen. Here, I think I can do it this way. Is that better?
Yep. Perfect.
Yep, it's good.
Okay, perfect. So as Krista and Lindsay said, we are representing St. Croix Tissue. My name is Monique Clavery, and I'm the quality manager here at the mill. And the reason I got involved in this is because I work with Erica a little bit on some forming committees, and we've done some work on with some prior classes that WCCC had to offer some opportunities for people to learn more about the forest products industry. So that's how I got roped in. And then I brought Stefan along with me. He's our HR manager. And so we'll kind of split up the presentation. I'll give you a little introduction to our company, and then I'll let Stefan take over with more of the HR type of slides. So what you see on the screen in front of you is a picture of our machine room here at the facility. So we are a manufacturing facility. I don't know if I can actually change. There we go. Sorry. So if you don't know where we are, we're located way, way down East Main. If you see the image in the middle with the state of Maine and the red star, we actually sit on the St. Croix River, which is the border with Canada. And so we're in a very remote part of Maine. We're one of the least populated counties in Maine. Here at St. Croix Tissue, we share a site with two of our sister companies, with Woodland Pulp and St. Croix Chipping. A lot of people in Maine, I think, have likely heard of Woodland Pulp, which the pulp mill has been on site for several years. But St. Croix Tissue was a new addition to the mix in 2016. And so we're all owned by the same parent company, but we operate as independent companies. So the way it works here at our site is that St. Croix Chipping gets in long logs and they chip those for use at Woodland Pulp. Woodland Pulp then makes pulp, which they sell on the open market, but they also provide pulp to us at St. Croix Tissue to make our finished product with. And Woodland Pulp also sells us steam and electricity to be able to run our machinery. So one thing that's pretty unique about St. Croix Tissue as far as pulp and paper making facilities in Maine is that we have very new assets. We operate two modern tissue machines that were both built in 2016, which compared to a lot of paper making assets around the state is very recent. We manufacture 100% virgin fiber jumbo tissue rolls. So we do not make these small toilet paper rolls that you buy in the store here at our facility. The size of roll that goes out from our facility is what you see in the bottom corner of the screen. And you can see the gentleman standing next to it. They weigh between 1 and 2 tons a piece. And then our direct customers will then take these rolls and make the small rolls that you buy at the grocery store. We have production capacity to make 126,000 metric tons per year of tissue. And just on the St. Croix side, we employ somewhere between 95 and 98 people on a regular basis. We're part of a high performance workforce, which Stefan will talk about, and really does address some of what Krista and Lindsay talked about with allowing our hourly workforce to see a career progression laid out in front of them right from the get-go, which I think is helpful to our retention. As far as all three of our companies on site, our sister companies as well, we employ a little over 400 people for the whole site, and that makes us the biggest employer in Washington County in Maine. So it does make us a big employer in the area. As far as what we make here, this is one of our machines. Our two machines are twin machines, so they are exactly alike. We manufacture a full line of tissue products, what you buy for bath tissue, kitchen towel, facial tissue, and napkin. And so we became very important during the pandemic. We definitely had some record-breaking production years during the pandemic. Our machines run at 2,000 meters per minute, which if you put that kind of in a more something that's easier to think about, that's about 75 miles an hour. And we operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days per year. So we are an industrial manufacturing facility. Our hourly workforce works 12-hour shifts on a rotating basis. Our salaried workforce works more days with some on-call coverage on weekends and nights. And one thing that's pretty unique, I think, maybe industry-wide for the pulp paper industry and manufacturing facilities is that we're a 20% female workforce. And I would say in our management team,
it's 50%.
It's more like 50%.
It is
yeah,
50%.
Which is definitely very different compared to any place I've ever worked. And one other thing that I think is also unique within the paper industry, at least in Maine, is that we're a relatively young group. Because we are a newly incorporated company in 2016, it allowed everyone to start fresh with a new workforce. And it just happened that our operations team, the average age is 27. And so Stefan and I are like the old people in the office.
More me than her.
But it also starting that new company and establishing a different work culture. They were able to create a really collaborative team environment here at St. Croix Tissue. A lot of young engineers get the opportunity to work on some big projects and take on some big roles with a lot of responsibility early on, which is unique to this facility in a lot of ways. And we also have a parent company that is really interested in investing in new equipment and assets. I think that's also very helpful. We put in those brand new machines in 2016, but already in 2021, actually in 2020 and 2021, we did major capital improvements to the machines in order to improve efficiencies and throughput. And so it's nice to be working for a company that is showing interest in, in investing in its people and its assets. Turn it over to Stefan.
All right. I am Stefan Donnell. I'm HR manager for St. Croix Tissue, and I also help with the hiring and recruiting process across all three companies here at this facility. And we definitely have a high performance work system. We started that day one. We had 65 hourly people we started out with. We trained them for 4 months at Washington County Community College. Most of these people did not even know what paper making was. So WCCC was a very, very big help to us getting off on the right foot. Definitely a very different type of work system. I came out of a mill that closed in Bucksport, Maine, worked there for 34 years, very traditional workforce there, seniority based, union. And while this is union too, it's not seniority based. The only jobs on the hourly side is the hourly team leaders, which look an awful lot like salaried supervisors, but they're not. Other than that, it's a pay for skill system, and no matter what jobs people work, they get paid for the skills that they bring to the party, and that's done through a skill book, and where you have to this field tests and stuff that show what an employee can do, and it's up to the employees how fast they do those. We've had some do them amazingly fast and get to really good pay quick. And in the end, I'm probably getting a little bit ahead of myself, but in the end, I think that's helped us keep people here that want to be here. People that like that system are here. And honestly, we've gone through people over the first few years of startup that didn't love it and didn't stay. So I'd say both those things are true. Flow to work environment is absolutely critical here. I'd say we're short-staffed on purpose. And part of the way we survive in here day to day is when there's a need, people flow towards that need, whatever the highest priority is. It isn't necessarily what job they're working that day. We have one piece of equipment that runs about half the time that 2 people would normally work on, and those people are flowing wherever the work is each day, whatever the need is, whether it's cleaning or training or filling other spots so other employees can have time off, all those types of things. And employees earn skills pay is paid to them no matter what position they're filling that day. And once they get skill-based pay, it's theirs to keep. We do yearly a refresher training of at least 12 hours just to make sure somebody doesn't work a job associated with the pay, that they stay the ability to continue to do that job. Yeah, I did get a little ahead of myself, but that's okay. I just didn't plug them twice. The WCCC's partnership has been crucial for employee training preparedness. That initial training for 4 months with 65 people, teaching them every aspect of paper making, how to work with chemicals, how the whole paper making process worked was so vital in us starting up. WCCC also developed a production technician associated and applied science program directly aimed at manufacturing and operational preparedness. Ongoing now, we try to get all 6 classes in yearly. Sometimes it takes a little bit more than that, but we keep putting 5 to 10 hourly employees at a time through 6 electromechanical instrumentation technology courses. They are offered on site. Employees are paid to go to it. It equates to a couple skill books levels, so there's actually pay increases when they finish those 6 classes. They kind of aimed at the maintenance side, but even for our ops employees that never end up going to the maintenance side, they're pretty critical. Is troubleshooting and instrumentation and PLC 1 and 2 and basic electrical, all good knowledge to have for if you operate as well, for being able to troubleshoot. And WCCC has offered soft skills workshops for us for the lead team. We especially did that the first 4 or 5 years. Did a lot through them. Okay, so I have kept track of the total headcount attrition, and I did it by attrition rate. So I guess the more positive way to look at it is how many people stayed. I did it by how many people left. 2016 was our first full year, and you can see it. The high was in 2018, and then it started coming down. And I've been so happy the last couple of years. We got it down finally to 5%, which is like 3 people leaving. Which is terrific. It finally stabilized. The workforce I personally came out of before in Bugsport, people making jobs were like the gold standard, and people just didn't give them up. This was a decade ago. They just didn't give them up. Once they had them, they kept them until they retired, or until a major life change happened. Definitely different workforce, and we are dealing with an average workforce of 27 or 8, so it's definitely a different workforce to keep happy and to keep here. No doubt about it.
Sorry.
That's okay. So both a plus, pro and a con probably is how rural we are. There are not a lot of other competition here. Really, the only competition is like the hospital or the college or the local electrical company or maybe U.S. Customs. But there is not other industry nearby that pulls people away. So that's basically the setting we have. Very good. We have very good benefits here, no doubt about that. Our pay for this region is very good. Not sure that would hold up nationally basis, I'm not sure that would hold up nationally and be true. Skill-based pay system. First 7 years, we had hired 60% of our workforce from low-income households, local, needed income, and appreciative. That I had to manage that. That was wonderful because we changed so many people's lives in such a great way, and it was harder than heck to manage to keep more than 60% from low income. And it really was low income. I'm talking like $30,000 on households of 4 people making under $50,000. We had to hire 60% of our workforce out of there, and that included all of our technical people, all of our salary people, all of our electrical and mechanical maintenance. That was difficult, but it was also very, very good. The University of Maine Pulp and Paper Foundation has been wonderful to work with. They've been wonderful to us. We do a lot of internships. I think we've got 8 or 10 kids, college students coming this summer. What's really worked well there is the leaders of that Maine Pulp and Paper Foundation came on site in the local community over the last probably 6 or 7 years and went to the high schools, talked to the students, and that's gone full circle to the point now where when we hire engineers, we're getting to hire local kids that have gone to college and came back to us, and a lot better chance of retaining those local folks than there is if they weren't local folks. JMG is Job for Maine grads, big organization here in Maine. Worked with them really closely, especially the first 6 or 7 years. Have several to lots of people that have come out of there and maybe gone to Washington Community College for a year or 2 and then came to work for us. And again, it was partnerships that started in high school and very, very valuable, I think, both for GMG and the students and us. Improved our onboard program. We still are improving it. I know we made some more moves this year to make it better. Definitely agree with like having to pay a lot of attention to the people you hire, meet them at the door, get them settled in. I do a lot of recruiting, but we also try to help with housing to get them here, and it's a pretty personal touch. And again, some of that's because of how rural we are. And then once they get here, making sure we're just not leaving them. And then work culture, crews become like family to one another, absolutely do become like family. They're working over 2,000 hours together each year, which if you start thinking about the daylight time in a year's time, that's a strong half. So they spend an awful lot of time here as compared to their own families at home. So I think that's our story.
Yeah, and our crews are 13 people.
Yep.
And so those 13 people really do become
Oh,
quite close.
they do.
Mhm.
Yep. And for the most part, that's gone really well.
Mhm.
Yep.
I think that's kind of our story in a nutshell. And we're happy to take any questions now, or if you want to wait for that at the end, Krista, either way.
Yeah, why don't we wait until the end, but folks can throw their questions in the chat anytime. And then we'll kind of do all of the speakers together at the end because I think some of the themes will play off of each other. So thank you so much. That was a great presentation and really a lot of interesting things that you guys are doing to kind of retain the people that you have working for you. And next up we have Doug Cry from Irving. Doug, do you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you've been up to?
Yeah, yeah, no problem. I'll share my screen as well. Make sure I get this right here. Share. Hopefully it doesn't go into presenter mode.
Take your time.
There we go.
Got it.
You see that?
Yep.
So yeah, for those that don't know me, my name is Doug Sear, not Cry, just so you know. It's make me want to cry saying Cry, but a lot of people say that though. I'm the HR manager for Irving Woodlands, Irving Forest Products. So we're part of the JD Irving group of companies. The HR manager that oversees the main business, and we just newly acquired a plant in New York, so I oversee that as well. But for the most part, I've always been in forest products from the time I graduated from Farmington to today. I've been in either pulp mills, paper mills, woodlands, sawmill, and some value-added plants. So certainly forest products near and dear, growing up around it and having my full career there. So from a JD Irving standpoint, so my presentation is very similar to the folks that just presented, very similar. I'll give you a high-level overview that if you've seen the presentations before, there's some similar slides, but then go into the attract, recruit, and retain. And honestly, between the two presentations we've seen today, a lot of good information, a lot of similar stuff that we're incorporating into our businesses. Some of the same terminologies. I hear high performance workforce. I hear skills-based pay. Two programs we have in our sites as well. So very familiar with the structures might be a little different, but certainly the terminology is the same. So company itself, we've been around for over 140 years, 142 years in various businesses. And over the year, it's grown across both US and Canada. Our headquarters is in St. John, New Brunswick, but we touch a lot of states and a lot of provinces and quite a variety of things, not just forest products, but here you see a bunch of logos. And these are all businesses of ours of various things, such as there's shipbuilding in here, there's trucking companies, there's sheetrock companies, there's forest products. So there's, when I think of our company, I think of a value chain that basically you can go plant a tree and get it right to the customer and essentially have some say or some part in every piece of that process when we think of the forest products. So in this value chain, we plant trees on our land base. We harvest it with either our equipment or some independent contractors that work for us. And then we bring it to a facility, a sawmill that breaks it down. And then we take some of the chips and we bring them to a pulp mill in St. John. And some of our chips actually go to Woodland Pulp. And then we convert it into, we take the pulp and we convert it into either cardboard or paper or tissue at one of our facilities. And even we can create the packaging for it and then get it to the customer. So very unique, very strong value chain that the company's been growing over 140 years. When I look at Maine in particular, so this map shows our operations in Maine and New Brunswick. The green would indicate the land base that we own, or freehold is what we call it. And then there's some tan land in the on the Brunswick side that would be crown land that we operate and manage for the Canadian government. And then you can see by the icons, those are different manufacturing facilities throughout Maine. These are forest products, Maine, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and then some arrows pointing to outside of Maine, Fort Edward, New York, Toronto, and Macon, Georgia. For Maine in particular, we've been in Maine since 1947, so 77 years. Ownership is 1.2 million acres. We plant about 3 to 4 million trees a year. We'll be hitting 1 million trees here in Maine, I believe, next year. But certainly a huge investment for the company to keep this process going. When you have all these facilities, you got to have enough resource and fiber to be sustainable and have it for long term. And right now we're doubling the size of our pulp mill. So the goal is to have that up and running and complete 2027 is the latest target. But essentially to do that, you have to have all the steps before it planned, figured out, and in place. So the little wheel, planning 80 years ahead. I like to say we plan in perpetuity. For the simple fact that in 80 years it's not done, and this wheel just keeps turning. So making sure that we're understanding our inventory, the resource, we have a good management plan, good operating plans, and then the last piece here is making sure that we're doing it right. So we're independently certified through FSC and SFI. So making sure that we're checking the boxes. So, and then providing support for our local communities, whether it's events that we plan or helping out with the universities that are right in our backyard or what have you. So our sawmill division, 1,400 employees, both sides of the border, consists of 9 sawmills, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Maine, 4 value-added plants. So value-added, for those that don't know what that is, basically you take in the stuff that doesn't quite meet spec, and then you convert it into a product that meets somebody else's spec. Could be some hardwood that doesn't meet spec, so you might chop off a knot or some rod out of it, and you sell it to a company that makes broom heads, for instance. Or you take pine and you take those knots out and you make finger jointed trim boards. So we have plants such as that, and then from a lumber producer, we're the 9th largest lumber producer in Canada. So when I think of attract and recruit, I bucket it into three things here. So the value proposition, which the first part of the presentation, you covered some of these things, but a lot of people we find just look at a simple wage and not necessarily the total package. So one of the things that we try to be is transparent and show them all of their package, and then we even in some cases we have a calculator that we challenge them on to prove that we got people that are more competitive than us, so that they can actually see it. And in some cases it's changed the minds of people coming in. It's changed the minds of people that may give a 2-week notice for 50 cents more. And then when you show them what they're leaving on the table, they don't take the whole picture into consideration. So we try to give them the full value. You hit upon a few things, the perks, the extra additional things, the memberships, club memberships to the local gyms, those things that, a lot of times we take for granted, even with our existing employees, and the idea of giving that benefit summary once a year to refresh them so that they don't get complacent on what the company is offering them is certainly something that we like to provide to our employees. Benefits of both financial and growth, very similar to the Woodland Pulp folks. When we think of our skills-based, you incentivize them from a financial standpoint, but you also get, and I'll show you an example here, from a growth standpoint. And some of that growth comes with additional training and upskilling, whether that's through in-house subject matter experts, cross-training, with existing workforce, or utilizing a community college. Certainly things that are very important. And then providing just additional resources, whether that's mental health resources, health management, just having a variety of options for people is a good option to showcase with them. When I look at people and markets, from where we recruit, I'll go over some slides here. I won't go through them in detail because they're quite long, but I'll give you an example of all the different markets that we tap into. Not for every job, but some of them are very specific to certain jobs, whether it's an engineer or unskilled laborer or what have you. There's a number of tools that we use, different markets that we'll reach out to. And then also on the foreign side, we've embarked on that journey the last 2 years in a couple of instances, both skilled and unskilled, and they have their challenges, I'll say, from a legislative standpoint, and very restrictive and very difficult. My counterparts over in Canada, it's a different world over there, but certainly I would say foreign, and when I say foreign, we think of foreign as another. It's not the saving grace of how to close the gaps, but it's part of our solution to helping with our manning and manpower situation. And then regional challenges, especially in the areas we operate in, we're rural. So housing is a challenge in some of our plants. Childcare definitely is a challenge, and transportation in some cases. So, we've worked collaboratively with outside groups. In Aroostook County, for instance, as a group, the Aroostook Partnership that is working on 3 of these things head on as an industry partnership with external sources, whether that's for funding or coordination or logistics or what have you. And I'll cover a couple of these here, but certainly the big thing there to me is collaboration amongst industry partners. You could be competing for people, but at the same time, we got to be working, putting our heads together and working as a group, because when you're in rural areas and you have 3 employers, the most frustrating thing is just to take employees from one another. That's not really solving the overall issue. So I think we have good collaboration amongst industry up here, and some unspoken rules about what you can and can't do. But for the most part, for those things, I would revert back to the first bullets of wage and total package to individuals that are interested in leaving their current employer. And in some cases, I've actually convinced people not to come here just because of where they're coming from, and just to be as honest and transparent with them. Having somebody drive an hour and a half to come to our facility doesn't make sense and if you're not planning on relocating, let's save each other the aggravation and lost productivity and having to retrain and all that stuff. And so it has to go both ways. And I think for us, that actually goes a long ways when you can be upfront with somebody. And I've actually referred individuals to, they might be a good worker and but they're an hour and a half away, and I will refer them to some of my counterparts. So it's being able to collaborate and work together in these small rural areas. I think that'll help the greater good of the industry. Here's just some, again, I'm not going to read these next few slides because it just is a lot of stuff that we try to utilize as many tools as possible. But from a social media standpoint, you can see that we're hitting most of the outlets that are available. Again, not everything would be for these, depending on, we try to strategize as to what that working group would be utilizing. Some people still watch the news, WHM up here, or down in the Western Maine area. Facebook, obviously, is a big one. Most employers are using it because I get hit with all their stuff. Traditional media, Bangor Daily, Portland Press. They pretty much have all the papers, the local papers, utilizing radio. And then making sure that we have our foot in the career centers. I think the career centers do a good job at trying to get their people to us. The challenge is the want of the unskilled entry level folks is the challenge. But certainly, if they're putting their foot in the door, the career center does a good job at getting them to the employers. We do have a unique opportunity up here. It's called Opportunities Aroostook. That's a job posting board. It's free for all employers in Aroostook, and both professional and skilled trades and what have you. We take part in that, and they're actually going through a revamp on that, and I'm going to expand on it. And then we utilize traditional headhunters, third-party search firms. They do come at a cost, but at the same time, the outreach is a lot further than Aroostook County, let's say, or Western Maine. So, and we've been successful with some of these to get a young engineer from Western U.S. to Northern Maine, or I get an electrical supervisor from Oklahoma moving his family here. So, certainly good opportunities there. We talked about high schools. High schools are vital to getting the word out, getting them exposed to the industry. The difficulty with high schools is the age. You can do job shadows, you can do ride-alongs, but you can't do summer experiences. You can't do work terms with them because of the hazardous occupations that we have. But for the most part, we do a lot of tours to get them to have a visual of what working in a sawmill is, or working on a piece of harvesting gear. Or we partner with some of these folks, for instance, and we promote the expansion of their programs. Just recently, for instance, St. John Valley just acquired a $600,000 or $700,000 piece of equipment to harvest wood. And we get a partnership where we provide them a piece of land, a shop, and the students are able to hone in their skills on operating, learning from what the safety requirements are when you're in the woods, to operating the piece of equipment and quality and everything. And it allows some of our foresters to go in, meet with them, observe, do any type of assessments. So those are some of the partnerships, working with the Caribou High School, Region 2 down in Western Maine. We work with Region 9, try to get students through our doors. Again, it's a lot of it's getting there's a lot of stereotype of what woods work is, what sawmill manufacturing is. And it's changed over the last, I'll say, even 10, 15 years. The jobs of 10, 15 years ago are still around, but they're more advanced. Their safety of working in these environments has turned around tremendously, where it's it's still a hazardous work environment, but the safety focus and the culture around safety is certainly not where it was quite a few years ago. So then when I look at higher ed, very similar. We tap into four-year institutions, whether that's in Maine or New York or even down now in North Carolina at North Carolina State in their forestry program. So it takes a lot of effort, but we find a lot of good individuals that have joined our organization. But for here in Maine, our go-to universities are University of Maine at Orono and Fort Kent, both from engineering and forestry programs. Really have good programs. The programs themselves have been shrinking. Pre-COVID, they were fairly strong. COVID, it kind of threw curveballs, I think, in every program, in every institution. And then also with the community college program and the initiative that's been going on there. There's some individuals that went to the community college, and hopefully they'll make their way to the universities and finish out a 4-year. I know there's partnerships there that exist, and we've had students that started at, for instance, the 2-year forestry at Fort Kent and graduated with their 4-year at Orono. And same thing on the trade side. We're heavily involved with pretty much all the community colleges. Whether it's electrical programs, diesel hydraulic programs, or what have you. We're heavily involved there. One initiative that we're working on up here, and again, back to our foreign opportunity, is the Northern Maine Growth Initiative through Northern Maine Community College. It's collaborative with industry partners, different schools, and really it's growing that program to address the refugee and asylum seekers. And then can we be a part of it? Is that part of our solution? And then we also utilize third-party agencies, local agencies, to help with either shutdown work, part-time stuff, or to find skilled trades that aren't in this region that want to relocate. So, and our last group, I'll say, is our military outlet. We take part in the Boots to Roots. That's a Maine-based organization helping military folks transition out and that want to return to Maine. So, we get their frequent newsletter of people that are putting their name in, and then we review resumes, and we got a couple on the go right now, and just trying to see which areas they want to relocate to. We find a lot of them want to relocate to the city centers, the Bangors, the Portlands, or just outside those areas. So it still becomes a challenge, but it's certainly a population that exists there. SkillBridge is another program through the military. It's an internship type program. And we were establishing a partnership there, but my understanding is that's been put on hold. So there hasn't been much activity there, but it's certainly something we're keeping our eye on. And then our local National Guards, we've done some outreach and to their service members and done presentations. And I actually have quite a few National Guards that work for us full time. And then they do their weekends, or in some cases they're senior folks and they've had to go away for a month at a time, or one individual was 2 months. We make concessions and work with them, but you certainly get a leadership type individual that comes out of that program. And it's been good to us. When I think retention and growth, engagement of employees is very important. Again, part of your presentations, both of you, you covered some of this. We do a formal engagement review every September, October. And then we have committees that work on engagement items, action plans. Every group has action plans that they're working on to try to understand the engagement of their group. And one of the things that we say is transparency is very important. And what I mean by transparency of intents, it's when we're formulating a change or what have you, we try to incorporate our workplace, both our hourly staff and our salaried staff in the process. And an example of how successful it was. One of our challenges was trying to get more production out of our facility, and in one way to do it, because we don't run 7 days a week, 365, and we have a set number of people. We came up with a different shift schedule. We came up with a couple different models actually, and then presented it to the teams. And then a couple team members on the hourly side asked if we had considered a different schedule, and they proposed a schedule. And we actually then did one-on-ones with them and proposed our 3 schedules in there too. And we ended up going with one of their schedules, based on one-on-one feedbacks, based on group sessions, and based on listening to them. And it's actually been it's been very good for us, and it helps with the buy-in and people being heard. And then training and awareness. We do a lot of cross training, especially in our facilities. Very difficult to cross train on the woodland side, but in the sawmill, certainly we get a program that we call 3 Deep. So meaning every station we have 3 people trained on it on each shift. And then we hope that every individual is trained on 3 positions. So you have good cross training, you have good coverage if somebody's sick, vacations. So it's been a process that we're 1 year in right now for this program, and it's something that's actually been working out very well. And everybody's incentivized by a financial incentive there. And then our skills-based pay at another site is off the same premise, but it actually has a lot more steps because it's a larger facility. History of the workforce. This is just a quick and dirty way of saying that our workforce was established for the most part from foreigners. I for one, am part of an Acadian culture that was never here and moved here and grew here. We became domestic, and now we're looking at foreign to help us offset some of our shortfalls today. So it's come full circle. And it's nice to remind people of that, because when you're predominantly a white Caucasian community, and you're trying to bring in people from Mexico, Puerto Rico, or on the woodland side, we get a lot of folks from Honduras, Guatemala, that do our planting. And when you remind folks that we were all at one time, for the most part, not from here, and we've grown with time, it helps with some of the conversation. And when we talk about people coming in from away, whether it's domestically or foreign, one of the things that we highlight with our folks is, at one time during COVID, we were short, in some cases 10 at a sawmill that's 92 employees at the time. We could be short on one shift, which is 21 folks. We could be short about 8 people, and could be illness or what have you. And then when we slowly got out of COVID, some people like the first presentation, left the industry altogether. So we really were short, and we still had to make production. So folks were working 60, 65 hours a week. And, we were, you're flirting with, burnout and all that. So when you can present to them a solution that will help with the work-life balance, and this is part of it, that was a good selling point for us. And we've been 1 year now with H2Bs in our sawmill, and it's actually been very successful. And we've incorporated their culture into some of the celebrations that we do at the mill. We've done Cinco de Mayo days. We've done done pie days and chili cook-off days, and it really gets everybody around, and it breaks up the monotony of sawing lumber on a weekly basis. So we try to incorporate as many fun things as possible, but at the same time trying to run a sawmill. And then regional challenges, I talked about, working collaboratively with outside entities for different services, transportation. Certainly, trying to be as open-minded to some of these challenges that our folks are feeling, but also trying to be as competitive as possible, and stay within our budgets. And I'll finish with these last two slides. I've shared these before, and it just gives you an example of, somebody coming into the organization unskilled, and just how somebody can grow in a short period, coming into entry level in a sawmill, 19.29 an hour plus an average bonus of $1.60 an hour plus $2 an hour. So, somebody unskilled could be coming in here working 10 to 12 hours a day, basically about a 48-hour work week, 4 days a week, and make a good living. But you can be promoted fairly quick through the ranks within a year or two. And it's through our skills-based program. And so you can promote up into production, or for those that are interested, mechanically inclined, and have an interest, they can bump over to the maintenance side, and then with similar style, pay structure and schedule. And then we incorporate, whether it's community college to assist in certain skill sets, or in-house trainings, or there's stuff we can use online. Certainly we tap into every resource that we can think of, and try to grow within. Yeah, so.
Great. Thanks so much, Doug. Really interesting. And last up, we have Bella Russo and Bree Wiseman to talk about the AgriBility program. Bella, I know you're on, and I think I saw Bree jump back on too. Hi.
Hi, yes, I'm on. Thank you for the introduction there. So I'm just going to pull the slides up and then share my screen. Is that how you've done it with the last participants? Okay, great. Let me just get that going. All right. Is that seeable for everybody here?
You might want to put it in presentation mode, Bella.
Such a good idea. Here we go. Thank you. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here today. I think we're all good. You can all see this. So myself and my colleague Bree Wiseman will be presenting to you about the Maine AgriBility program. I'm the project coordinator here for the state of Maine. Different states have their own versions of the AgriBility program. We're going to just specifically talk about what we do here in Maine and how it relates to timber and forestry products and stuff like that. So we'll start with our mission here, and firstly with our name. So AgriBility is sort of a fusion of the words agriculture and ability. And I like for people to think about the work that AgriBility does is to keep folks that are in those industries able to do the work that they have done for so long, to continue on with that, doing their work safely and productively. So the way that we kind of go about achieving this mission is a combination of education and direct assistance to agriculturalists in their fields, and also support to their families. So we really work with anybody that's in production agriculture, and I'll talk about how we define that a little bit more later. And we kind of operate through this framework of enhanced quality of life, and typically that tends to be more on the physical and cognitive side of what a farmer might be experiencing. And so production agriculture here is kind of diverse. And so in our agribility program here in Maine, we define, you might hear me use the term farmer, or Bree use the term farmer. To us, that means any traditional farmer or agriculturalist, fisherman or logger in the state of Maine that has their own operation. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Bree for just a minute.
All right. Hello, good morning. I have a background in occupational therapy. I'm not sure if we shared a makeup of who we are, but I'm one of the independent contractors. So we actually have about 3 of us who are occupational therapists on staff, and people like Bella who are ag trained workers and movement specialists as well. So like looking at disability in ag, so right, 5,700 Maine farm workers are impacted by disability. So 16% disability statistics estimated of 30,000 farm workers. And so in Maine, like we're considering agriculture also related to not just traditional land, but fishing and farming as well. So we're a little bit unusual in that way. I think, hold on one second. I've got 2 screens up at one time, and I'm going to move one over here. And yeah, as we know, like just traditional, I think I need to say one thing that I don't know if you guys know, but I learned it since being on this job, that 90% of logging, traditional kind of logging in Maine, is done with mechanization. So it's mechanized logging operations. So that's only leaving about 10% where you might have more of the guy going out with a chainsaw and just a skidder and hauling that way. So it's really the kind of issues with physical challenges with loggers are often, believe this or not, like injuries that an office worker might receive, right? Because they're literally sitting in a cab, and the duration of sitting could be like 12 hours at a time. And that's a really long time, and people tend to slump their shoulders and have poor posture. So that might sound pretty different than what you were expecting. They still do have to get in and out of the cab, so falls, slips, and trips are a problem, and they do have issues when throwing straps. So this guy in this picture, Justin, just had to throw like a 3 to 5 pound weighted strap over 12 feet, and now he's locking this down. So there are physical aspects of the job, but they come in fits and starts. All right, Bella.
Awesome, thanks, Bree. Let me see. Oh, I'm having a hard time advancing here for some reason. Oh. Sorry, everybody. I don't know what the challenge is here. All right, I think we're cooperating again now. Yep, looks like I am where I need to be. So another major tenet of the program is to create sustainability. And when we say that, we really work to create connections with our farmers to help them find a sustainable plan for when agribility has stopped working with them. And the term that we're working with an individual client will vary on a case-by-case basis, depending on what their specific needs are and what their specific challenges are. But we want to make sure when our job there is done and when our funding is up, really, that they do have a plan to continue on and to continue receiving the support or resources that they need, or they know at least where to go and where to find the help that they might need. And so we are grant funded by a grant from the Farm Bill, which is from the USDA. And so that funding is competitive, and we're on, a basis of it's a 4-year grant cycle. So we use that funding to help educate farmers on disability and health resources that are available to them that they may not be aware of, or that may be a little bit difficult to find without the AgriBility connection and influence there. And so the idea there is to help educate both the farmers and the resource providers about the support that farmers need and to get them connected with what they might need. I'm going to see. So I'm having a hard time advancing here for some reason. So I think I'm going to just have to spend this presentation going in and out. My apologies for what that might look like from a viewer side. So to take a little bit of a step back, I'd like to just kind of review how we work and what this connection is here. I mentioned earlier that AgriBility is active in approximately 21 states right now. Maine is just one of those states, and we work as sort of a collection of different agencies. So UMaine Cooperative Extension is one part of that, and that's sort of the ag framework that we work off of. And then we work with Alpha One, which is our nonprofit partner here in Maine, and they specialize in what we call assistive technology. And that really just is specific, implements tools, machineries, technology that is designed specifically for folks that have different disabilities and different levels of ability. We work with our independent contractors, which Bree mentioned a little while ago. And so our team right now, we've got 4 of those folks that have backgrounds in occupational therapy, yoga, and they're, agriculturalists and fishermen and farmers themselves. And then additionally, we have what we call an advisory council, which is a board essentially of folks that represent various state agencies, businesses. Some are farmers themselves that give the AgriBility core team advice and guidance on new clients to contact or areas that we might not be aware of or new opportunities. So we all kind of work in conjunction together in order to kind of put on the main AgriBility program, so to speak. All right. Turning it back over to Bree.
All right. So looking at logability goals, if we take the first one, education, I mean, obviously we're doing that right now, but we've been working with professional logging contractors of Maine. Not sure if you're familiar with them. They put on a spring safety committee, and they go through all parts of the state. And we worked with them and created an ergonomics program for loggers in an effort to kind of reduce the major pain that loggers will complain about, which is low back pain. So a real effort to get an understanding to the loggers about how positioning can affect them in their cab, and what is a reasonable heights for doing something. So like in terms of, if you're looking at this picture, this is a 2-person operation, kind of a father and son guy. And you can kind of see right here, this is a machine called a harvester. And that first step between the wheels there, that first step is a doozy. That's going to be at the low end 17 inches, at the high end 24 inches. So just getting up onto that is a struggle. And they don't necessarily, they haven't in the past taken into consideration what a regular step is. And just for you guys to know, to code, a stair is like about 7.25 to 7.5 inch of rise, because that's a reasonable step for most people. And then the tread is about 10 inches. So when you're asking somebody to, 17 to 24 inch, well, you're going to put a lot of compressive forces on the body just to get into your machine there. And you can imagine if it's icy or slippery, that can make the problem even worse. Networking, we do find it more challenging to get more of a awareness out there. There just seems to be, in terms of logging, less like trade shows to go to and everything. But we have attended the let's see, it's a Bangor, it's every other year it's up in Bangor. So we've gone there and been to the table there before, trying to do outreach in that way. And then of course, direct assistance is what we like to do best. And that's working with any, logger who has an illness, accident, injury, or chronic condition. We go on site. We kind of watch their work. We watch them go in and out of the different cabs. There's, there can be like 6 to 10 different machines that they are using during the day. And they may be assigned to one machine, or they may have a few under their belt that they work during the day. So, as occupational therapists, we are like study task analysis. So we're kind of really figuring out what is their body doing in relation to what they need to do to operate things. And then marketing, yes, vending tables and going out and meeting with folks like you guys to try to let them know that we're out here. And I'm not sure if Bella said this already, but this is at no cost. We do not charge a fee to come out and do that. That's what the program pays for. So, if we make a recommendation or suggestion, that is not money that the grant funds, but we're pretty good at working to find out if there's grants or low interest loans available to help get the logger what he needs in order to continue to do their job.
Thanks, Bree. Yeah, that's a good segue into the next slide here, which is just a delineation of what the program can provide and doesn't provide. And so we operate, like I mentioned before, off of federal grant funds, which Bree just mentioned. That really funds the work, and it funds us, our positions and our ability to go out and meet with loggers or farmers. And what that prevents us from doing is providing direct funding or directly purchasing an item or piece of equipment for a client that we might work with. What we can do is to help provide connections to resources for these items. So, and we can help clients develop relationships to different other agencies that can help assist them in more specific ways. For instance, sometimes we work with vocational rehab with our clients, and our kind of sphere of influence there, so to speak, is to help get them connected, to find them a counselor, and to sort of help them initiate the process if they so choose and if that is what they want to do. We might also connect them to funding sources if we do discuss a piece of assistive technology or equipment that can make their job more sustainable and make it more feasible for them to do for the long term. And then a few of the funding sources for agriculture products here in Maine. There are some charitable organizations. We used to partner with Goodwill in the past. That's a little bit outdated. Some nonprofit organizations. I already mentioned Alpha One, who's a partner of the AgriBility program here, but also exist on their own. Government agencies like vocational rehab. Those are all great examples of places that we might send a client, or we might assist a client in finding funding for what their need might be. All right.
Yep. So what we're looking for in terms of a client is somebody who's actually logging in terms of production, not necessarily somebody that has some trees that they intend to turn into firewood so they can heat their house. That's not exactly the production agriculture aspect that we're going for. That's, work with land farmers, and a lot of land farmers, small farmers often have a woodlot like we do. And I live on a small farm, and we have about 190-ish acres in a forestry plan growth. So that could potentially be acceptable to logability. So, I mean, if there was a question, if this person is eligible, the best thing is to call Bella, and she can help suss that out. And the other thing would be, are they having a challenge to their ability to get their work done? So that, it could be that the challenge happened during work time. Maybe they slipped, and as a result, they have an injury from that, and they still want to log. but it's okay if they got an injury at home that's also preventing them from logging. So it doesn't have to have happened during work time. That does not matter to us. Our goal is to help the worker continue to be able to work. And I'm not sure. I just talked to Don Burr, who is the safety coordinator for the PLC, and I think he told me that they need about 2,500 loggers. Like, we don't have enough. So obviously we need to keep those folks that are logging still logging if that's what they want to do. And so this is just giving you examples to think broadly. You know, it could be heart disease. Maybe they do have mobility challenges. A lot of loggers are older and arthritis can be onset, and you know the kind of conditions that they're in, you know, where they're exposed to cold just to get into their cab can aggravate that arthritis. Diabetes is prevalent in the population at large, and it can be mental health related, anxiety, depression, traumatic brain injury, visual or hearing impairments. You know, we can work to modify vehicles that assist them. Neurological issues such as multiple sclerosis, you know, stroke, you know, that doesn't mean that you have to stop working. It means that we may need to address adaptations to how you work or adaptive equipment so that you can continue to work. And just looking at this picture here, this gentleman is 6'7". Now look at how hard it is for him to reach that first step. So, you know, one of the things about this is that, you know, in a logging operation, you are on uneven ground. You've got rocks and logs in your way. So you can't just, like you would with a traditional tractor that, you know, also could be a very tall cab. You can't just leave an additional metal step to get on, because you'd have to pull it out of your way, because the next log that you drive over may just take that step right out. But there are means to do that. So, you know, again, I wish I took this other picture, because there was the next guy that got into this cab was my height, which, you know, 5'5", and you should have seen him try to get up into there. So, you know, ergonomically, things aren't really designed for loggers. They're really designed for production work. All set.
All right, so I'd like to touch a little bit on the direct assistant component of the work that we do. Bree talked a little bit about it earlier, and this is really helping to work one-on-one with a farmer or a logger. And in that direct assistance piece, we'll talk about what their general barriers are, what their limitations, maybe what their condition is, or conditions that are preventing them from continuing to work as efficiently and safely and happily, and then some of their goals. And what we'll do there, Bree mentioned a little bit about this, we'll do an observation of sorts and watch them do their typical day-to-day tasks around their operation, and help provide them specific advice or suggestions, connections to available resources. And then after that point, it's up to the individual client to really determine what the best path forward is. So they can take some time to consider the information that we've given them and then decide to move forward in whatever way they choose. So sometimes it's nothing at all, or it's nowhere. Other times they do decide to go forward and connect with some of the resources and implement some of those solutions. And we're there to support them along the way in those steps. So typically in a formal assessment here, an occupational therapy member of our team will come along and help. They have, you know, compared to myself, I don't have that training. I've got more of the ag background myself. So we'll kind of pair up and do this work together. Two sets of eyes are better than one. That's sort of the way that we think about it in this program. And we certainly have our different backgrounds and areas of expertise. So it's best to be able to work together to help problem solve and think of various solutions or things that might help somebody who's working. Oh, looks like this is giving me a little bit of trouble again.
Bella, I think next time try just putting your finger on the mouse pad and forwarding. That might work.
Or maybe that'll work better. I'll try that next time. this assistive technology toolbox is a resource that we have on our National Agribility website. So it's accessible and available to anyone out there. If you were to just search National Agribility Program, you would be able to find this easily. And basically what this toolbox is a sort of conglomeration of all sorts of assistive technology. So you could search for anything really. You could search by your your profession, for farming tools, for fishing tools. You could look for a tool to do a particular task, or, you could search by disability or injury. So it's kind of an interesting resource. We reference it sometimes ourselves. It's great to just kind of see what's out there and what different states have collected and put together to help farmers, etc. so far.
And I think I would add on the, if you go to the national and you look for this toolbox, there are some logging options, but all those logging options are for, small farmers who have a small woodlot on their property. They're not really designed for big production loggers. So it wouldn't be helpful that way, but there are cross tools that would apply to fishermen, farmers, and loggers that are you can find on the website.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you, Bree.
All right. So, assistive technology you can kind of think of in terms of like low tech, where maybe it's just a reacher, one of those things where you squeeze the handle and the mouth closed, something as simple as that. And then you can go more high tech where it's electronic and things can open with a push of the button. Looking, there is not nearly as much assistive technology in the logging world. It might probably some of that has to do with the fact that, and again, this is very regional, but Maine is very mechanized. So you're in a cab environment and you've got a lot of electronics at your disposal to make the arm of the machine do what you want. However, that being said, because I see posture is a big problem, because you might have a pneumatic seat, it goes up, it goes back and forward, but if you're fatigued over time, your shoulders are going to rotate in, and that is just going to put so much pressure on your lower back, and there's going to be a lot of tension in your shoulders. So we might recommend something like on the left here, which is just that kind of back strap posture enhancer. It's not perfect, but it can be a reminder to cue you to be in a more upright position. There's a little spinner knob down here when people have some fine motor control issues because maybe they have a neurological issue, or maybe they have arthritis, so they can't really grab as well. One of these spinner knobs attached to a wheel can make a huge difference in the ability to continue to do your work. The little plate above it, that's actually like a little bit of an armrest. So, you would just position it so that the forearm is in that little concave area, but that you can still get to your equipment. So if you have some weakness maybe in your upper extremity and you just can't hold your arm that long, this would allow that you to have that still work for you. I'm sorry about the picture here. This is going up onto a harvester machine, but you can see the additional steps. So they are getting more forward thinking in the newer models. A logging machine is going to easily run like $500,000 to $1 million. It's a big piece of equipment. So, unless you're getting a new machine, many of the old machines aren't going to have these extra steps in, but as machines get retired, newer machines are addressing more that the human body needs to be able to have help in getting up into these machines. And something simple like this is a seat that, if you're getting into your chair, it will help you spin, kind of like a lazy Susan for your bottom, right? So you're going to sit in it and it's going to kind of slowly twirl you around on your own volition so that you don't have to twist, because bending, lifting, and twisting when you have back issues, that isn't the best thing to do. All right, next slide. So you'll probably notice that we have more farming pictures, and that's because we don't have enough logger clients yet. So, however, there is some similarity. So this is a farmer who has a spinal cord injury. And if you look at the picture on the left, you know, he goes from his wheelchair up into the tractor. And how he gets up there is he either has to try to heave himself up these steps. So this is kind of like a mat or a rug. So that's a lot of shoulder effort. Or somebody comes behind him and hauls him up into the tractor seat. But you know, once he's in there, he has full ability to drive his tractor. There's no problem. He can drive, you know, for hours. So this move is the thing that was keeping him from doing what he would like to be able to do, and he gets paid for. So this is prevalent that you know, there's injuries to farmers. So just having a lift to take you from your wheelchair into your tractor solves that, and he can be completely independent. He can operate it all by himself. There's many different varieties of this particular lift will remain on this tractor, but you know, then he can continue to be a good worker. Okay, Bella. Oh, I'm doing this one again. All right, so we were just going to show you a little video vignette that we have. This particular vignette, it is a lobsterman. This is a lobsterman who had a spinal cord injury. So when you're kind of watching it, you know, logger who has a spinal cord injury, most of them will be able to actually continue and log because of the way mechanized logging is set up. So this is Steve. He's happy to help us. And he had his injury not from fishing. He is a hunter, and he fell out of his blind and had a paraplegic result as a result of that. So has
yeah, I think we put the clip to the video in our notes here, so I'm just gonna jump back out for a second so I can pull that up.
Okay.
Or maybe
So
we didn't. I might have to this might be a great opportunity for folks to see our site, which is where I'll go and where this information is stored. All of our success stories you can find here, along with other information. And my apologies for that not being linked in. Let's see. Okay, so here is Steve. So this video is 3 minutes long. If we might.
Uh-oh. Bella, you still there? Well, maybe she got maybe she got locked out. Let's go to the next video because I think she was considering time. So if we look at the next video, or actually you guys, I don't have control of the slides here, but what we can talk about is why you might have folks that might benefit from the logability program. So like, for instance, when we did the ergonomic classes for loggers, oh, she just sent me a message. Okay, I'm just letting her know she got kicked off. So,
And Bree, we're not seeing the slides anymore, just so you know. So
yeah, I don't, maybe I can share the slides. Is that
you
possible?
should be able to.
Okay.
We do only have a couple minutes left, though, and I want to give people a chance to ask questions.
The last two slides aren't really
okay.
super. Yeah, this last slide that we had was talking about folks that you might know that might benefit from us. So like
Perfect.
whether we're just doing for, you know, some of the folks in that logability ergonomics class that, you know, I got comments like that was the most helpful class. I learned so much. You know, I didn't know what I didn't know, basically. And that's always great to hear. And then, you know, this is common, especially with older folks. And Bella, we're not going to worry about it anymore. Aging. So here's the thought. I thought it would be healthy forever, but things happen. But to me, it's important to keep going. So, people usually kind of in these professions have a genuine desire to continue, especially if they're owner operator of their small logging thing. They've already invested a lot of time and money into their logging equipment. So, I mean, obviously, if they can, they'll keep going it and doing it. So, just with a matter of adaptation and maybe adaptive techniques and adaptive equipment, they can remain. So, if we want to open it up to questions, sorry about the kerfuffle there.
Oh, no worries. So yeah, if anyone has questions for any of our speakers, now is the time. I don't see any in the chat, but I'm hoping you all would just like to either just raise your hand or jump in.
Just a comment I would make
Yeah.
on the equipment that's used in the woods. To your point, even like the stairwells and the stuff that gets designed and engineered in these pieces of equipment, you'd think that they would come up with a more ergonomically sensitive way to make it happen. I remember when I first started with the company 13 years ago, we build our own roads and we grade our own roads. And one of the issues we had on our grader was that bottom step, because it was actually wasn't even a step. It was a piece of chain that was just hanging there. And we had an older individual that ran the grader, and we could see some things coming up. And what we ended up doing is designing our own staircase to get in the grader, so you weren't lugging on your two arms to get up inside something. And that's one of the things that I think from an industry standpoint, we need to do a better job at challenging those companies to come up with something that's more something better for the people's health, because these folks want to run it for 20, 30, 40 years. And if they can't get into it safely, then that's a challenge. And they get a lot of smart engineers that should be able to figure out something as simple as that a lot better.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think what they need is like OTs on staff to bring in the body component to it. It's nice that it's getting a little bit better. But like you said, I've seen a lot of creativity, and that's wonderful. And we learn a lot from going out and visiting our clients that, they've done their own adaptations. So, we can say, hey, you know what, this guy's doing this. And so this is really helpful. But, and you're going to have the odd end of the spectrums, right? You're going to have the 5'5" guy, and then you're going to have the 6'7". Technically, ergonomics would say everybody should be able to work, that comfortably. And it maybe someday they'll figure that out. I don't know.
As I sit up straighter in my chair here. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and especially to our speakers. We so value your input and insights. I know we didn't leave a whole lot of time for questions, but if you do think of something, please reach out to me. You've been getting all of the emails about the sessions from me, and I'll make sure to connect to you with the appropriate people. I'll also share the slides, and everyone's contact information is in them. If you could all just do one more thing for us, and we'll drop we have a survey that we need to use to track these training sessions. So we're hoping each of you could fill that out. It covers all 3 sessions. We'll also follow up with an email with the link in it, or you can just use your phone to scan this code. But if you could take 5 minutes and just fill that out, that would really help Erica with her reporting that she has to do. But with that, I will say thank you again, and let everyone go. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.